What's going on, guys? Welcome in to kick off the tip-off with just Gage tonight. No Noah. He had some things going on, so still wanted to record and get a video out for today, and kind of figured what better way to do that than a solo mock draft here, kind of post-free agency, where teams have definitely spent some money and kind of foreshadowed where they're going to be going in the draft. I think we kind of got some key hints to where some teams are going, so without further ado, man, let's not waste any time here and let's get right into it. And I do want to mention one thing, no trades in this draft. I thought about kind of shaking things up with the Giants going up to 1 and Tennessee falling to 3, but with the news of Russell Wilson visiting both Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants, it just makes it really tricky until we really know where he's going. And then I have to imagine that Aaron Rodgers is going to end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which doesn't really affect things because they're picking 2021, I believe. So let's jump right into it, man. Tennessee Titans here in this situation that we have are going to stick and pick, and they're going to take Cam Ward. Not often are you sitting at the number 1 spot with a need of quarterback. I should say that when you are picking at 1, it is because you are lacking at that quarterback position. And I think Cam Ward, by no means, I don't think he's the most talented player in this draft. I personally would take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter over him. But not many times are you picking at 1 and a talent like him, an NFL caliber talent. Let's not ignore the fact that, yes, this is a weak quarterback class, but Cam Ward still has some really good traits, right? I mean, he put together a solid season here at Miami, 4,300 yards, 39 touchdowns this past year. He's able to push the ball downfield very efficiently and effectively, has really good arm talent, and he's also a really good improviser. And I think Mike Bergonzi coming over and obviously Callahan as their head coach, they have no ties to Will Levis or any other quarterback in that room. And if you're sticking and picking at 1, I'm going Cam Ward. So rolling in here to pick 2, I'm going to play this situation as if Russell Wilson signs with the New York Giants at 3. I think if it is ultimately his decision, which it is, money obviously comes into play, but we don't know that, what these teams are offering. Public doesn't know that until it really comes out. So I'm going to play this as if he signs with the New York Giants. I just think that's a better overall fit for him and Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, who are coaching for their job. He brings a little bit of consistency to that quarterback room. And it doesn't really affect my decision here at pick 2 for the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that Shedeur is your answer here, and vice versa. I don't think this is a spot where Shedeur would like to go. It's just not a very good fit, in my opinion, with Stefanski. A weaker receiver room with Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore is a free agent. So, Cedric Tillman kind of came on at the end, but just a lot of question marks there. I am going to have them go Abdul Carter here, who I do think is the best player in the draft. Just a true edge threat, man. He really shined in the college football playoffs this past season. 43 hurries, insane pressure rates, 13 sacks, just an animal off the edge at 6'3", 252 pounds. A really, really good combination of both speed and power, can get it done in a lot of ways, and him paired with your Hall of Fame bound defensive end on the other side, Myles Garrett, is just a crazy rush off the edge with a really talented secondary. I mean, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, and Denzel Ward, it's a really, really good defense. And is Kirk Cousins in play at quarterback or Jameis Winston on a re-sign? They traded for Kenny Pickett, so I have them passing here on Shedeur. I just don't think that's a great fit. So, and here we are, pick 3. Like I mentioned, Russell Wilson is your quarterback. So Shedeur in play, yes, as a bridge, treating Russell Wilson as a bridge quarterback. Shedeur your future. But let's remember something here, right? As I kind of just said, Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are coaching for their jobs this upcoming season. Had an unsuccessful season this past year, and really outside of the 2022 season, I believe it was, where they went to the playoffs and won a game with Daniel Jones against the Minnesota Vikings. It's been pretty disastrous in their especially Brian Daboll's tenure there. Joe Shane, it hasn't been very pretty either. So with that being said, I am going to have them go Travis Hunter here. Divide it up whatever way you want in terms of offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, 60-40 split, 50-50, who knows? But here's what I do know. On the field, wherever you decide to play him, you're getting an elite athlete, a guy who is just a true game changer on both sides of the football. I mean, him, Wan'Dale Robinson, and obviously Neighbors, is a really, really good trio of wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball, and you also just re-signed Slayton to a 3-year deal. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you're talking about a team that has struggled in the secondary in a division with Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, who really showed that he can be a great passer at times too. So you're walking into a cornerback room where you went out and got Paulson Adebo from the Saints, which is an underrated signing. Javon Holland, who they signed. Deontay Banks hasn't been what we quite expected. And your nickel corner, Drew Phillips. So you can obviously upgrade in that secondary. And it's just to have a hard time believing that you're going to pass on a talent like Travis Hunter there at the number 3 spot. Rolling in here to pick 4 with the New England Patriots. There's definitely 2 ways you can go with this. And lucky enough for Mike Vrabel, he has the choice with the 2 guys sitting on the board. Pull up this roster for you guys real quick. Kayshon Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, and Demario Douglas, and they also picked up Matt Collins, Holleen Polk, an early second-round pick who just never really panned out. Your receiver room is extremely weak, but your left tackle is also extremely weak too. So Mike Vrabel coming in, is it Tetairoa McMillan or is it Will Campbell? I think those are the 2 places where this pick is going. And this time around, man, I'm going to go Will Campbell. The deal with Campbell was, well, his arm length is too small to play tackle at an elite level in the NFL. But, you see right here, I mean, his 3 years at LSU, all at left tackle, only 4 sacks allowed and roughly 30 pressures allowed. I mean, I think with the 4th overall pick for a team that needs left tackle and you sign Morgan Moses from the Jets in free agency, I think it's worth the pick here at 4 to find out if he can play an elite left tackle in the NFL to protect your franchise quarterback and an up-and-coming quarterback in this league in Drake May. And I think you address wide receiver in another way. They were pretty active with the Chris Godwin market and just missed out because Godwin wanted to stay in Tampa Bay. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't hang your head at a guy turning down $20 million more than what he skipped on. So I think you go left tackle here. At the end of the day, let's say he's not a very good left tackle. You're getting an elite guard to move him to the inside. But I personally think he's going to stick at left tackle, and you're getting the best overall offensive line prospect in this draft. So rolling in here, pick 5, Jacksonville. Liam Cohen is probably salivating at the mouth to get Tetairoa McMillan to pair with Brian Thomas. They also brought in Diami Brown. But I'm actually going to go a different way here, man. I'm going to go Mason Graham, a plug-and-play defensive tackle out of Michigan. And Mason Graham at 6'3", 320, 5 sacks here, 20 hurries up the middle. The reason I like this pick a lot, outside of the Tetairoa McMillan pick, is the opportunity to form a pretty good front 7 for a defense that at times did not seem very competitive last year. You would start and play Mason Graham at your defensive tackle 1 position over Devon Hamilton and Masson Smith, and it would combine for Trayvon Walker, Mason Graham, Josh Allen Hines, Devin Lloyd, and Foy Oluokun, which, like I just said, creates a pretty competitive front 7 on a defense that really lacked last year. And a relatively safe pick there at 5. Mason Graham, probably an all-pro within his first 3 years in the league. So I like that pick for Jacksonville at 5. Pretty safe in my opinion. And then rolling in here to pick 6, man. Noah and I talked about it in our previous video. Do you go Tetairoa McMillan? Do you go Ashton Jeanty? You brought in Geno Smith. This definitely feels like an offensive pick here. And this time around, I'm going to go Tetairoa McMillan to play your ex-receiver in Las Vegas. And the reason I'm going McMillan over Ashton Jeanty for 2 reasons. One, you have that early second-round pick where you could take Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson to be your 3-down, workhorse or early down back who played in a Chip Kelly system, your new offensive coordinator. So it doesn't necessarily force you to use that top 10 pick on Ashton Jeanty in a really good running back draft class. And that's not taking anything away from Jeanty. I still have him as a top 10 pick, and you'll see where he goes here soon. But I like Tetairoa McMillan to come in. Jacoby Myers slides to your wide receiver 2 role, and then I have a pretty good feeling that Tyler Lockett is going to reunite with Pete Carroll and follow Geno to play your wide receiver 3 role. And Geno is not a guy, like Josh Allen this past year. There were questions of Diggs is out the building, so it's like Khalil Shakur and a bunch of people you're kind of skeptical on, Matt Collins. But Josh Allen is a good enough quarterback to obviously take his team to the AFC Championship. Geno, on the other hand, is not that, not even relatively close to that level. He needs weapons around him. And Tetairoa McMillan, I'm not saying he is the talent level of DK Metcalf. I think he actually has a higher floor than, or a higher ceiling than DK, but kind of the same build in terms of 6'5", 212, true X receiver potential. I just like getting Geno that X receiver there at 6, and you address the running back in the second round with Judkins or Henderson to follow Chip Kelly. So I really like that. And coming in here, pick 7 with the New York Jets, I've kind of went back and forth with this. I really like Will Johnson here at 7 for them. Problem with that, though, like I mentioned with the Patriots, you lost Morgan Moses, so you're sliding Olu Fashanu, who you invested first-round draft capital in last year, to slide back over to left tackle. Your interior is extremely good, but now you're lacking at the right tackle position. And this is where I'm going to take my first heavy combine riser, and Armand Membu. Membu tested extremely well. I had it pulled up here already. He actually tested better than Will Campbell. A 4.9 40, a 31 bench press at 6'4", 332 pounds. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that ad going. I apologize if so. But an extremely good prospect here who raised his draft stock in the combine. I have him going as a plug-and-play right tackle to the New York Jets, who you gave $40 million to Justin Fields to kind of play around and give yourself some wiggle room. And with Membu and Olu Fashanu as your tackles, you create a pretty good duo for the foreseeable future there in New York. So rolling in here, pick 8, the Carolina Panthers. This one is a pretty easy pick to me. I know that there is some split consensus on this pick. I'm going Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I know sometimes I'll see mock drafts where he is as high as this pick right here and doesn't really make it past pick 11 to the 49ers. And then there's other times I see him down here in the early to late 20s. But Jalen Walker, obviously super talented. I'm not sure that he's hit his peak in terms of the player that he's going to become. You can obviously upgrade at your outside linebacker positions with Clowney, who can bounce down and be a rotational rusher, with Turk Wharton, Derek Brown when he gets healthy. You can, immediate upgrade over Wanham, or if you really want to, you can kick him inside to play over Josie Jewell or Trayvon Wallace, who Trayvon Wallace, third-round pick from Kentucky this past year, I believe, is actually pretty electric when he has his head on right. So that would actually be a pretty fun pairing with Jalen Walker. But you're getting a pretty unique defensive piece. I mean, this past year, 249 snaps on the D-line, 311 in the box, 61 in the slot. You can move him in. You can move him to the edge. Extremely productive. I like this pairing for a defense that just needs a guy to fly around sideline to sideline and make plays. So Jalen Walker, pick 8, is one of my favorite picks really in the first round. And if, the Panthers decide to go that way, maybe they go Will Johnson to pair with J.C. Horn, who they gave a pretty hefty bag to. But I like Jalen Walker there at 8. And then pick number 9 here, man. This is where I have the Shedeur slide kind of ending right at pick 10 almost. And this one just kind of a fun pick to kind of be a little skeptical one. There's not much buzz between Kellen Moore if he does like Shedeur, if Shedeur will even be here, possibly a team trading up, a sneaky team that we don't really know. But, Derek Carr, 2 years left on his contract. You're in a division that seems winnable every single year. Kellen Moore obviously has no ties to Derek Carr. So, if he sees something with Shedeur, he's obviously had Justin Herbert, and then his time this last year with the Philadelphia Eagles had Jalen Hurts. So he's worked with talented quarterbacks. Could Shedeur be his guy, quote unquote? It's just something to kind of play around with. I actually like the landing spot of the Saints. Like I mentioned, the division is winnable every single year. Your defense is somewhat good every single year. They re-signed Chase Young. They actually got Justin Reed from the Chiefs recently. So they're making moves on that side of the ball. Your interior line is I don't want to say amazing, but it's pretty good for, I believe it's Eric McCoy, and Cesar Ruiz. Fuanga, and then Trevor Penning kind of has lacked at times. But yeah, I like Shedeur here, 9. I think he is a first-round quarterback. He's not going to wow you with his arm talent, but he is accurate. He's good football in terms of making reads. Limits turnovers, in my opinion. I mean, a lot of times I'm watching Colorado, for as much as they were maybe down in games or throwing the ball, seemed like he was making good reads. So Shedeur 9 there to the Saints is just kind of a fun pick to think about, especially after post-free agency, where, before Geno and Fields, I would have him going probably 6 here to the Raiders. But the way that these two teams address the quarterback position, you no longer need to go that route, in my opinion. So he slips to number 9 with the Saints. And here's Ashton Genty to the Chicago Bears, and probably sprinting up to the podium to make this pick. And the Bears are allowed to make this pick simply because of how well they address the offensive line this offseason. You go out and trade for Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson to shore up your interior. Joe Thuney has tackle potential, as we saw in the Super Bowl. You went out and got Drew Dahlman to fill that center position from the Atlanta Falcons. You got Grady Jarrett from the Falcons. You got Dio from the Colts. The defense itself is pretty solid in general, so you're able to go make this pick of Ashton Genty the best running back in a generational running back class. That's not by mistake. This guy is absolutely electric to watch. Almost 2,600 yards, 30 touchdowns. I mean, I don't need to go on about Ashton Genty. The talent is off the charts, and it'll be a fun fit with DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. I believe Keenan Allen is out, so you're looking to upgrade at wide receiver 3 in another way. But no more excuses for Caleb Williams, man. Competent O-line, a star running back with Genty, an extremely good running back 2 with Swift, and then top 10 pick Rome Odunze, and a really good wide receiver 1, borderline 2 with DJ Moore. So, and then the 49ers are sitting here at pick 11, and they're not really used to picking this high in the draft, but when your former first-round pick from this past year, Ricky Pearsall, gets shot in the chest before the season even starts, and then you have McCaffrey going to Germany by about week 6 to deal with his Achilles tendonitis, it doesn't shock you that they are picking this high. And they have lost some extremely talented guys because of the Ayuk extension and the Brock Purdy extension looming. Dre Greenlaw out the door, Charchavius Ward, that unfortunate situation with his daughter, I believe it was, he was out the door, and Hufanga, who went to the Denver Broncos. So you're sitting here and you can go a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to address the cornerback position with Will Johnson here. I think at pick 11, this is extremely good value. Will Johnson, an extremely rangy corner at 6'2", 202, great hands. Only had 6 games this past year due to injury, but a really, really talented corner. I think the fit there for a team that needs help in the cornerback room, really a Charchavius Ward replacement from day 1 at pick 11 is extremely good value. Rolling in here, pick 12, Dallas Cowboys, another NFC team here. This is another combine riser for me that I'm going to take. Scroll past. Here it is. Shamar Stewart, pick 12 here to the Dallas Cowboys. DeMarcus Lawrence is out the door, so you lost an extremely good edge threat. And Shamar Stewart, you bring a little bit of versatility. You can play him inside, you can play him outside. 6'6", 290, and not necessarily the stats you would want, only 2 sacks, but 33 hurries on the quarterback this past year. And like I mentioned here, you can play him at the outside tackle spot on the defensive side of the ball, over tackle, B gap. You can move him around inside out, extremely versatile. And him paired with Micah Parsons would be, really good. It will be a replacement to Lawrence, but an upgrade over time, I believe. And like I mentioned, he tested extremely well at the combine, which helps his stock. And I'm in on Shamar Stewart. I think he could possibly be in play at pick 8 with the Panthers, 9 with the Saints, and this is kind of where I have him going. So pick 13 here with the Miami Dolphins. Teron Armstead, I believe, is coming back. I kind of saw some buzz about him possibly retiring. Maybe not. I do believe he is coming back. So I think you go one of 2 ways with this. You can go Kelvin Banks, left tackle from the Texas Longhorns, to potentially replace Armstead down the line when he calls it quits, but you can also get better at the right tackle position with Austin Jackson being there. They re-signed Liam Eichenberg today, I saw, but I'm actually going to go a different route, and I'm going to get Jalen Ramsey, another corner on the opposite side of him. Storm Duck as your cornerback 2 or 3 with Cater is just not really cutting it in a division where Drake May is coming and Josh Allen as well. So I'm going to have them go Jahdae Barron here. A really good corner out of Texas. Not really much to be said. I mean, you just have to get better at that position. Jahdae Barron did play 16 games, which I guess is kind of the thing that will be talked about. I think Will Johnson is a more talented corner, but people kind of scared away because of the injury concerns. But to me, there's still a clear gap between Will Johnson and Jahdae. But, I mean, don't get it wrong. Barron is an extremely talented corner. And I think him with Jalen Ramsey on the defensive side of the ball out there in Miami would be a pretty good pairing. So rolling in, pick 14, Indianapolis Colts. I'm sure everybody has Tyler Warren. Yeah, about 28% here. mock to Tyler Warren. I'm so out on Tyler Warren. Late prospect as a senior. You look at his numbers right here. In 2023, 422 yards, still found a way to get 7 touchdowns, and then got his yards here in this past season with almost 1,200, or a little over 1,200, and 8 touchdowns. It's just, for a tight end prospect, I'm not really in on a guy like that. But my issue with it is, do you go edge? I mean, you drafted Laiatu Latu last year as the first defensive player off the board in the entire draft. You still have DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye. So, to me, are you really going to use another high-value pick on edge? I mean, you can upgrade over Samson Abukum, but, Jahad Campbell could be in play for a team that runs a 4-3. Jahad Campbell, a true 4-3 linebacker. You extremely upgraded your secondary with Cam Bynum and Charchavius Ward, 2 really good signings. Like I said, I hate that I'm doing this. Your tight end room is just so terrible. And you want Anthony Richardson. You want to see if he really is your guy. You bring in Daniel Jones to quote-unquote have quarterback competition. I mean, what are we doing? So I'll take the bait here. I'll go Tyler Warren. I think this will backfire in not only my face, but everybody else who has him, near the top 15. I'm not a fan of this whatsoever, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I just hate that I'm doing that. And I kind of get to redeem myself a little bit here at pick 15 with the Atlanta Falcons, because I'm going to go Jahad Campbell, a guy that's been rising up my draft boards a lot recently. And a team that can obviously use some help at the linebacker position. You take a look here at their depth chart. Arnold Gabite, Troy Anderson, Caden Ellis. So you can get better, especially in the middle linebacking core. They did bring in Leonard Floyd, which is a good signing. So I like Jahad Campbell here to kind of come in and be your middle linebacker in a 4-3. Rolling in here, pick 16 with the Arizona Cardinals. A team that could definitely use some help, specifically on the interior side of the offensive line. Problem is, too, I mean, your defense, specifically edge, is not extremely talented. Darius Robinson did not have a year that you thought he would for a first-round pick, I believe. You went out and got Josh Sweat, which was a really good signing. Cornerbacks are okay with Sean Murphy-Bunting and Max Melton, who you drafted. Am I going edge here with James Pierce, or do I want to address this offensive line with Kelvin Banks? You could kick Jonah Williams in. You have Paris Johnson. Similar to the Mimbu pick at 7, I am going to go Banks here, strictly off the talent that he has as a tackle in this draft. Now, however they decide position-wise to make it work with Paris Johnson, who plays the left tackle for them, Kelvin Banks is a true left tackle prospect. As you can see, all of his snaps in college are all at the left tackle position. Only 4 sacks allowed in his 3 years, and similar to Will Campbell, roughly, or a little under 30-ish. So, it's hard to pass up on a talent like that to protect Kyler Murray. Seems like he's always running for his life. And at 16, I like that. You just kind of you plug and play him and make it work and kick Jonah Williams inside. Immediate upgrade, obviously, over Evan Brown and Isaiah Adams. So, pick 17, this one pretty easy for me. I'm going Malachi Starks, a team that just desperately needs playmakers in the back end of their secondary. Pull it up here. I believe it's Jordan Battle and, Geno Stone. So 2 guys just not really cutting it on a defense that was just not very good in general. And they could go, a little bit of everywhere. You could go James Pierce over Osaya. Trey Hendrickson is in trade conversations apparently. So I'm gonna go Malachi Starks here. You can play him a little bit of everywhere. He can come down and play in the box. He can play in the secondary, be a really good defender. As you can see, 400 in the deep, 215 in the box, 271 snaps in the slot. So Malachi Starks, pretty easy pick at 17, and I feel like that's right about his range. You don't necessarily see safeties go extremely high in the first round anymore. I think of Brian Branch, who was a borderline first-round pick and dropped to the second there for the Lions, and you see how that played out for them. So Malachi Starks there, 17 to the Bengals. Brings in here to a team who is absolutely in, I don't want to say a rebuild, because you went out and gave Sam Darnold a bag to come play your quarterback spot, but you traded away DK and Lockett due to some cap casualties, or massive cap hits, I should say. And, are you still wanting to be competitive? I would have to imagine so. And that's where I'm going to address the wide receiver room here. I'm going to go Emeka Ibuka, a guy that I really like, a clear wide receiver 3 for me in this draft, right below a Travis Hunter, who I think is a really good wide receiver if he chooses to, or the team chooses to roll him out for enough snaps to really produce, and Tet McMillan. So Emeka Ibuka, clear wide receiver 3 for me. 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in an offense where you had Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, a generational wide receiver prospect in Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate, who on 75% of Power 4 teams would be a wide receiver 1. So Emeka Ibuka, pairing him up with JSN, two Ohio State guys, I believe former teammates, would be a fun pairing, and he's a clear upgrade over Jake Bobo, obviously. So pick 19 here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're definitely going edge. I'm not as high on Mike Green as others. It comes down to James Pierce or Mykel Williams for me, and I am going to go Mykel Williams, a guy who's kind of fallen down draft boards, but then had a really good pro day, and I believe is going to start to really climb back up into the board. Mykel Williams at 6'5", 265, as a true power rusher, is extremely good, and then he also brings some flash in terms of speed rushing. But I just like him as a fit a little bit more than James Pierce, and I will show you why. They went out and signed Hassan Reddick, which is a great signing. Yaya Diaby is your other outside linebacker. He's extremely underrated and a good outside linebacker in a 3-4. Levante David to hold down your middle spot. Jahad Campbell would be awesome if he slips here, but Mykel Williams, an immediate upgrade over Logan Hall to create this front, this pass rush, I should say, of Mykel Williams, Vita Vea, who's a monster, Kalijah Cansey, who's a monster, Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, and then Levante David still in the middle linebacker, and Winfield kind of holding it down in the back end, and they would be pretty active in the cornerback market and the middle parts of the draft. I love that pick with Mykel, similar enough to the Jalen Walker pick, one of my favorite picks in the first round. Rolling in here, pick 20, with the Denver Broncos. I think Luther Burden could be in play here, but does Sean Payton go wide receiver in the first round in this draft if Ibuka is not on the board? I don't know. I'm going to pivot and go a different way. I'm going to go Kenneth Grant, plug-and-play defensive lineman out of Michigan, similar to Mason Graham, on a team who – get this ad off. A team who made the playoffs this past year and didn't really have a ton of name value talent on the defensive side of the ball. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, you add Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga, two massive signings, but Kenneth Grant gives you an immediate upgrade at the nose tackle position over DJ Jones, a really good run stopper up the middle at 6'3", 339 pounds, plug and play, don't think twice about it, and get immediate results from that draft pick. Rolling in here to what will be the Aaron Rodgers-led Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. I think we're kind of waiting around for him to sign the deal with them, and I think the Steelers are in on him too. I'm going to go Josh Simmons here. One thing to think about with Aaron Rodgers this past year with the Jets, he was sacked 40 times. 40 times. For a guy coming off an Achilles injury, and really, his only talent at this point in his career, and I say this is dumb to say this because he's a quarterback, so obviously, but he's an extremely good thrower of the football, right? He's going to be able to get the ball to DK Metcalf and George Pickens in ways that they've never been able to catch the ball before. He has always been an elite passer, and that trait has not fallen off. The downside to that is he is an absolute statue in the pocket and doesn't really move, well outside of the numbers and just the pocket in general. So before I get into Josh Simmons and kind of where I'm at with him, you invested first-round draft capital into Broderick Jones and Troy Fatawana, who didn't play a ton this past year. Zach Frazier, an extremely good center. And Mason McCormick, not very good at right guard. Suamalo, it's okay. But I think you can kick, probably Broderick Jones, who struggled a little bit at the tackle position, inside. And Josh Simmons, pre-ACL injury, had tackle one potential, like up there with Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, really. And I don't think it's a matter of if he can get healthy. I think it's a matter of if he can continue and get back to the play pre-injury. He was an absolute monster at Ohio State, and I think looking back at this draft a couple years, if he can get back to that form, we'd be talking about Josh Simmons at 21 as a true steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I said, you're getting Aaron Rodgers, and they have a really talented offense, and the probably be sure to add a running back in this draft class. Although, did they just add a Kenneth Gainwell, but they'll probably still be active in the draft for a running back late round. So coming in, Chargers here at 22. This is where I will have James Pierce going. You lost Joey Bosa to the Buffalo Bills. You brought back Khalil Mack, who I'm sure his years in this league are kind of getting numbers just due to age. I just like this James Pierce fit a little bit more. You can line him up at left outside linebacker. I'm not necessarily sure you're bringing him off the edge where they did sign Deshaun Hand. So I like him to come off the edge with Khalil Mack in this 3-4, and that kind of fits him a little bit better. An undersized edge rusher at 6'5", 243, but 8 sacks out of the SEC this past year with 43 hurries, and his pressure rates are just, they can't be looked over, man. He's an extremely talented player despite character concerns or some other reasons where he maybe slips down the board. I think his range could potentially start at pick 11 and 12 with the 49ers and Cowboys. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys go James Pierce here over Shamar Stewart, but I have him going 22, and he falls into a really good situation with Harbaugh, who seems to always be drafting trenches, obviously. I mean, he drafted Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors, so would it really shock anybody for him to go James Pierce over Luther Burden? I don't think so. And they also brought back Mike Williams. So pick 23 here for the Green Bay Packers. Once again, Luther Burden sitting on the board here. I don't think that's the answer, simply because Luther Burden is kind of similar to the other receivers you have in your room. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, a speed threat. I'm a huge fan of Dontavian Wicks, but the problem is if Wicks was as good as what we think he is, he would be having a way bigger impact than what we've saw so far from his days in the league. So I think you pass on Luther Burden here and go this route. And a lot of people not really up to date with the draft are going to be like, what in the hell is this? Nick Amonowore, another guy at the Combine who's just a freak athlete at 6'3", 227 pounds. He ran extremely well, jumped extremely well, a true playmaker in the secondary, and the Packers can upgrade at this safety position instantly. Evan Williams just isn't really cutting it. You pair Amonowore with Xavier McKinney, Jair Alexander, who if you choose to keep, I saw he was kind of in some trade talk controversy, but I believe he'll stay. Nick Amonowore, immediate upgrade in your secondary. Don't force the receiver position here with Burden. I like this more as a playmaking safety in your secondary. And coming in here, 24 for the Minnesota Vikings, who I did see today have been active. I believe they got Ed. This may not be updated. I believe it was Ed Ingram from the Bills, maybe. I can't remember. I know they acquired an interior lineman today, along with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, so they've been addressing that interior. They went out and spent heavy money on their defensive line with Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. Harrison Smith is coming back, I saw. So a couple different ways you can go here. But I'm going to go a little bit flashy, I think, and go Amarian Hampton. I think we do see 2 running backs in the first round in this draft class. Amarian Hampton, to me, may be a weird comp to some, but I think he looks like a prime Kareem Hunt to me. Like when Kareem Hunt was in his really good days with the Chiefs, this is who Hampton kind of reminds me of. 1,660 yards and 15 touchdowns this past year with the Tar Heels, and also pretty proven in the pass game. 38 catches on 43 targets, 373 yards. And I just have a hard time believing that the Vikings are, they gave Aaron Jones the 2-year extension. Cam Akers was an unrestricted free agent. So Ty Chandler is your current running back too. I think you have some room to draft Amarian Hampton. J.J. McCarthy is looking like your starter, day one starter now with Sam Darnold out the building, and I don't really think they're in the market for Aaron Rodgers. So it's McCarthy time, and I think getting a explosive running back to help him and a room with Aaron Jones and Amarian Hampton would be a pretty steady running back group for a quarterback making his debut. So 25, the Houston Texans, and actually I think I'm wrong here. This is who I was thinking of Ed. Yeah, Ed Ingram. I'm sorry. It was not the Minnesota Vikings. I got ahead of myself. They traded and got Ed Ingram from the Minnesota Vikings. Traded away Laremy Tunsil. You went out and got Laken Thompson. You traded your 7th for Christian Kirk. You don't have Tank Dell for this upcoming year. So once again, Luther Burden in play, but I don't think he's this crazy major upgrade over John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson. And like I said, you went and got Christian Kirk. So where do you go with this pick? Daniel Hunter getting up there in age a little bit. You could use a defensive tackle. You went out and got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which I did like. Your cornerbacks are absolutely locked down with Lassitier and Derek Stingley. Petrie is good as well. Is Ed Ingram going to play offensive line is the question for them. Start probably over Juice Scruggs. You're bad at left tackle. Do I go down the board a little bit? I think Gray Zabel is an interior guy at the NFL level, so I don't necessarily value him as a left tackle coming out of North Dakota State. To me, this is defensive tackle or left tackle. Take it whatever way you want, but I am going to go Josh Connerly Jr. here to play that left tackle position and be a replacement to Larmy Tunsil, who you traded away. Just plug and play left tackle. You went out and traded for Ed Ingram, who I would imagine somehow finds his way in over Juice Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson there in the interior. So Josh Connerly, 25 there to the Texans. Don't love it, but, what are you going to do? Are you going to pass on, outside of Connerly, right? That's really the last true tackle prospect for a while. Tyler Booker could be in play, one of the better interior offensive linemen, specifically left guard. And I don't know. They're kind of in a tough spot, but Connerly is still talented. So rolling into pick 26, a lot of people I saw have the Rams mocked to take a tackle or a guard, but Rob Ravenstein and Kevin Dotson, their right guard, I believe it is, actually had some really good years, and they're both back. Steve Avila and Alaric Jackson are two of the most underrated offensive linemen on that left side there. You went out and brought in Devontae Adams, which will just be perfect for them, and Matthew Stafford. So I think this goes on the defensive side of the ball. When they have drafted defensively, it's been well for them. Braden Fisk was a great pick. You obviously had defensive rookie of the year in Jared Verse. You're weak at the cornerback position. Kobe Durant, Darius Williams, Quentin Lake. Maxwell Harrison could be in play. He ran really well at the combine. I may go that way. Darren Porter down here on the board too. An older prospect from Iowa State. I think I am, because you don't really need defensive line where you signed Poona Ford, and Kobe Turner is a really talented defensive tackle. So I'm going to go down the board a little bit for a guy who raised his stock from the combine. Maxwell Harrison, a really good speed corner, and at 6'1", brings some pretty good length in terms of height. So this is probably one where this is borderline reach, in my opinion, compared to some of the other, some of the picks and kind of where I've been going with this mock draft. But I still like Maxwell Harrison and a team that can get an upgrade in the cornerback room specifically. So I like Harrison there. Pick 27, this is where I have the Mike Green drought ending. I think he's a perfect fit for Baltimore, for a team that actually needs edge. I feel like they get to the quarterback enough. I don't want to say it's extremely good, but you can obviously get a pretty good upgrade over Broderick Washington. They do run that 3-4, so a lot of the times it's David Ajabo and Odofe Owa kind of being rotational rushers in this offense or defense. But I do like Mike Green here pick, and I think this is about where I think he'll go. He obviously had that Senior Bowl moment where he runs over, it actually might have been Connerly, and then he says, I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm not doing anything else. I don't believe he tested at the combine, and he will test at his pro day, which would be something to watch, but tests extremely well, as you can see here. High 90th percentile numbers in win rate and run stops, top 50 all-around ability, and protects starting caliber outside linebacker in a 3-4 front. So you can play him. You can play him off the edge. You can drop him back in this linebacking core over Robinson or Kyle Van Noy. So I don't mind that pick, and pretty good value there at 27 for the Ravens. Rolling here, pick 28 with the Detroit Lions, a team who they brought back. I'm sorry, didn't bring back. They brought in DJ Reed, cornerback from the New York Jets, to help out with that secondary. Him and Terrion Arnold will be pretty good, along with Brian Branch, who I mentioned with the Malachi Starks pick, and Kirby Joseph. So this is actually where I am going to have them go Tyler Booker to replace Christian Mahogany. Tyler Booker is a extremely steady left guard prospect. I think he's plug and play from day one, and to be a replacement on your interior offensive line. As you can see, I mean, no sacks allowed this past year, only 7 hurries, strictly left guard position really in his college career. So I like this pick. I like this fit for Tyler Booker and Dan Campbell. And we go here with the Washington Commanders, who do not have their second and third, I believe, and probably, I'm pretty sure a couple other picks due to the Laramie Tunsil trade. So this will be their only pick here for a while, and I'm gonna make it worth their while. I think you take the swing here on Luther Burden. I think you pair Luther Burden with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, who you gave up your 5th for, and create an awesome trio of receivers for Jaden Daniels. And I just think Cliff Kingsbury will be able to scheme Luther Burden open a lot. And he kind of had down numbers due to poor quarterback play from Brady Cook at Missouri this past year. 61 catches on 81 targets, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns. But you could play him outside, you can play him inside. As you can see, kind of his breakout year in 2023, 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. Really good yards after the catch, a good yak receiver. Better than Emeka Ibuka, in my opinion, but Ibuka creates better separation, if that makes sense. But I like this pick here in the late first to take the swing on a receiver that could have really high upside. And you also really don't know what form of Deebo Samuel you're getting. So, especially with the kind of rumors and leaked videos and stuff of him looking like he put on 20 pounds. So I like Luther Burden here as not only a step in day one contributor, but potentially if this Deebo doesn't really work out, you kind of have some room to relax if Luther Burden can take some of the burden off of Deebo. So 30 here and only 3 picks left, and we will wrap things up. The Buffalo Bills, I think, need to take a page directly out of the Eagles' game plan. I mean, they were probably sitting on the couch watching that Super Bowl like all of us and realized the way to beat Mahomes in the playoffs and Super Bowl is to get to the quarterback. And they have Ed Oliver, obviously. You brought back Greg Rousseau, and you bring in Joey Bosa, and I think they keep going in this direction, specifically defensive tackle. And I'm going to have them go Walter Nolan. I think Walter Nolan and Derek Harmon are pretty equal in terms of talent, but it's more of a scheme fit. I think Walter Nolan paired with Ed Oliver is a better fit than Derek Harmon. Similar enough to where I'm going to have the Chiefs go defensive tackle here as well. But you form a defensive line of Greg Rousseau, Walter Nolan, Ed Oliver, and then Joey Bosa is a really, really good front four to get after not only Mahomes, but any team in their division and the AFC in general. So like that pick for them. And then similar enough, but also for other reasons, I am going to have the Chiefs go Derek Harmon. You could go Gray Zabel if you want, but you're going to let Kingsley Suamata roll out and see what you got at left guard this upcoming year. Trey Smith is playing your right guard. You have Creed Humphrey still. Jawan Taylor's your right tackle, and you went out and got more from the San Francisco 49ers on a 2-year deal to see if he could potentially be your future franchise guy there at left tackle. So I think tackle or offensive line in general is kind of out of play here. I don't think Golden is in play because of they re-signed Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice will be coming back, and Worthy looking like a stud. So I am going to go Harmon here. More so the fact they just have kind of taken a hit here in this free agency. This was the position where they've had some guys leave. Turk Wharton to the Panthers. So your current second defensive tackle, Fabian Lovett Sr., is not what you want going into this year. And, you could go Ezeraku, but you invested that first-round draft capital in FAU. Felix Anugo-Wanze from Kansas State, he just hasn't really panned out into what you would have hoped. Mike Dana's okay, so I'm going to have them go interior defensive line here with Derek Harmon, is extremely talented. 43 hurries from the defensive tackle position this past year, 5 sacks, 6'5", 310, so really good size. Him and Chris Jones will be pretty fun to watch. And then to round things out here with the Philadelphia Eagles. you're sitting here and there's major value on the board. I mean, Donovan Ezeraku if you want to go edge, or Matthew Golden if you choose to replace Jahan Dotson in that wide receiver 3 role. And this is where things kind of get tricky, like I mentioned about not being able to do trades. In this case, I'm not doing trades, but whoever it was last year that it was the Bills. They traded all the way back to 32 and then traded out of that for the Panthers to come up one spot into the first round to get Leggett on that fifth-year deal, and the Bills didn't even make a first-round pick this past year. Similar enough, I think teams can go up and down here, and the early 20s to mid, really the 20s in general, to maybe take a Matthew Golden or Donovan Ezeraku. So the fact that one of these guys isn't going to, and Loveland too, aren't going to make it in the first round is kind of due more to the fact of I'm not really doing any trades in this one. I'm not doing any trades at all. So 32 here, I really just want to go Golden to create a trio of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. But I'm just not going to do it, because why would they do that for a team that just preaches time and time again about offensive and defensive line? So you get a really good prospect in Donovan Ezeraku, long arms, a really good speed rusher, would obviously be an immediate upgrade over Moro Ojamo, and you lost Josh Sweat, obviously Milton Williams too. So you're kind of hurting a little bit, I guess, in that pass rush department. I did see they signed Joshua Uche from the Chiefs. Didn't really have much of an impact last year. So Ezeraku, potential plug and play here at right outside linebacker, or you can move him down that defensive end spot. So a pretty good fit. And people might flame me for not getting Matthew Golden in here, and maybe Golden goes over Luther Burden. It's just, it's hard to predict what these teams will do, and this is kind of where I'm at. Maybe Golden goes 26 to the Rams instead of Maxwell Harrison, but in a Super Bowl window, I mean, you need help at corner, and Harrison can give you some juice in that secondary. But it's kind of the finished product, post-free agency, kind of where I'm at with things in terms of NFL draft. And appreciate you guys, kind of sticking around and watching. Not easy giving 32 players and kind of 32 descriptions of why I feel it's a good fit for them. So kind of interested to see who you guys think I'm too low on or maybe too high on. So like, comment, subscribe, and kind of let me know where you guys are at with things. And appreciate you guys watching as always.